Hey everyone, I've got a fun one lined up for today's episode of SysAdmin Weekly. I've got a friend of the show, Clay, on today, and he's going to be sharing his experiences in going through university recently to prepare for a career in the sysadmin world. Now, you don't have to look very far in the industry to find the debate of whether you should go to university for your IT training or focus on certifications or somewhere in between. And there's always this question of, does university cover enough? Do they prepare you for that sysadmin world? Now, Clay is going to share all of his real-world experiences with us, whether he feels like university prepared him, what they did well, what he kind of wishes, was included in his training. So we got that and lots more on today's episode of SysAdmin Weekly. Hey folks, it's a new week. That means it's time for another episode of SysAdmin Weekly. This is your podcast by sysadmins, for sysadmins, and dedicated to all the tireless tech folks out there working in the trenches, toiling day in and day out to keep the digital world spinning. As always, I'm your host, Andy Serwich, and I'm excited about this. I've got a new face on the show today. I've got Clay with us. How's it going, Clay?
Hi, how's it going? My name is Clay, and I'm a young starting sysadmin. Technically, I'm not even a sysadmin yet. I'm a cloud engineer at a small company over in Eindhoven, the Netherlands, where I work at the high-tech campus. I'm very excited to be a guest on the show. Yes, thank you, Andy.
Yeah, definitely good having you. I love talking to younger sysadmins because it's a different, I don't want to say different vibe, but it's a different outlook because, you look at all the other guests that I have on the show, we're all old graybeards, right? I've been in the industry for 25 years now, and Eric about, I think, more than that, Paul more than that, so it's nice to have a different perspective. And I think Eric and I, we actually did an episode not that long ago where we were talking about, we got into a conversation about cloud versus on-prem, and I call out the fact that I have met sysadmins today that they have only done management, sysadmin work in the cloud era. They've never had to manage on-prem Active Directory or DNS or, so it's good to have that different viewpoint. So I'm really excited for our conversation today.
Yes, me too. Thank you. And it's funny that you mentioned that you are all the older guys and the gray beards, because I was when I started uni, I was the oldest in my class and had been consistently till the end of uni, and I started graying when I was of age 19. So by the time of second year in uni, everyone was calling me the graybeard, the grandfather of the class. So it's nice to be the youngest person in the room right now.
There we go. It must be an IT thing. Something about IT makes us have gray hair. I'm not sure what, but well, I can guess what. But anyway, well, I appreciate you being here, Clay. We're basically going to be talking today about your experience learning the ropes of technology at university, talk a little bit about your early career now that you're in the trenches, and, whether you feel like university prepared you, that type of thing is kind of what we're talking about today. So, but before we get to that, we have all of our usual housekeeping items and recurring segments. So just some housekeeping stuff here. You can find all the different platforms that the show is available on at www.sysadminweekly.com. So we're available on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon. I feel like I'm forgetting one, but they're all out there on sysadminweekly.com. And we do have I I think this episode will come out just in time, but we are going to be doing some sort of SysAdmin horror stories episode for, the spirit of Halloween here, right? So if you have a SysAdmin horror story you would like to share and have us discuss on the show, you could always reach us at contact@sysadminweekly.com, or you can comment on one of our YouTube videos, or you can comment on any of the episodes out on Spotify. So now that I've gotten my plugs out of the way, we can move on to our recurring segments. And I'm going to start with our Nerd Hour segment today. And of course, it doesn't take an hour, but it's the segment of the show where my co host and I, we talk about the nerdy, geeky things that we've been working on in our spare time. And Clay, being your a new guest on the show today, I'm going to let you go first on this one. What neat, nerdy, geeky stuff have you been working on lately? Either in your day job or, personally?
Well, thank you, Andy. To start things off, I've actually nuked my home lab. It's a bit of a anti-nerdy thing that I did, but actually, I'm starting over with the home lab, starting over from scratch, because I am currently in the process with my partner of buying a house. Yes, we're already renting a place, renting an apartment right now, and we just got done with the bigger details and everything of the whole adult buying a house stuff. And since that house won't have any Ethernet ports in the wall anymore, I have to completely change the way my home lab functions and the network routes and everything. And I'm looking over at the home lab, which is just hardware stuck in a smaller, how do you say it, cabinet, three shelf cabinets, and I just came to the decision to buy a 10-inch rack. And
there you go. Nice.
Yeah, and I'm going to build my lab in there once we settle into the new place. So while that is going, I won't be working on the home lab as of now, but I am being I have taken a more of an interesting approach to microcontrollers. So think of Arduino coding and also ESP32, of course. All started because I bought a Pi02W and hooked it up to my main router to have Pi-hole installed and everything and run my DNS that way.
Yep.
Worked really well until I made a rookie mistake of eliminating the single point of failure, and I had the DNS of the Pi set into my router, which is the ISP provided one.
Right.
And for some reason, one day I came back home, the Pi crashed.
Oh no.
Yes, and the Pi crashed, meaning it couldn't, it wasn't putting out network traffic anymore, and it was on the DNS address was on my ISP router. So I came back with none of my devices being able to do anything. And I'm like, this is because my ISP. It certainly cannot be me. So I was on the phone for with the ISP for like 15 minutes, trying to convince him, like, look, I know how this works. I've studied this. The router does not work, and then it clicked, and I'm like, oh no, it is my fault. And like, oh yeah, thank you. Yes, yes, no worries. I got it from here. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Okay, goodbye.
It's always DNS. It's always DNS.
It is always DNS. That is something that was taught in my internships and also taught at college, in university. The problem is always DNS. If the problem isn't DNS, it's the user. If the problem isn't the user, then it must be something else entirely. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. You you get into IT and eventually you start asking yourself the question when you're troubleshooting, is this DNS? It just starts being, can I resolve
Yes.
the name? Oh, I can.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to the next possibility now. It's that darn DNS. So yeah, and I was going to say, tearing down your lab. I mean, that's a sysadmin rite of passage. I can't tell you how many times I have looked at my lab and I'm like, it's all wrong. It's terrible. I have to
Yes.
rebuild it. Just tear it all down and spin it back up
Exactly.
again.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
well, very cool. So my nerd hour, my nerdy geeky thing I've been working on is, if you're a regular listener of the show, Eric mentioned a large writing project he's been working on. I have been helping him out with some security content, and surprise, Eric, this is Hyper-V related, right? No surprises to the people that know Eric. But I basically have been helping him with a portion of that, more on the security side. So I have been refreshing my Hyper-V security skills and digging into the inner workings of Device Guard and HVCI and Secure Boot and all of the new fancy stuff that they have added inside of Windows Server 2025 in regards to Hyper-V and security and VM isolation. And yeah, they have added so much in 2025 that I basically looked at everything that Eric and I had put together. I'm like, okay, what's missing? Boy, there is a lot of security stuff here for Hyper-V these days, and I'm just a ton of it. So that's kind of the nerdy, geeky stuff I've been working on. So
Oh, that's great.
there's
That's great.
never a dull moment on the security side of things. That's for sure. I mean,
Absolutely.
in IT in general, but if
Correct.
you get bored, wait 5 minutes. So,
That's
well,
certainly true.
yeah. So the next item I've got on the show here in our recurring segment, before we get to our main topic, is our News React segment. Now, the News React segment is our efforts to keep the show timely, kind of tied with real world events, right? And this is the segment of the show where my co host and I, we each talk about a tech news headline that kind of drew our eyes. And I suppose I'll selfishly go first on this one. The one that has drawn my eyes, and people know because I work for a security vendor, that's the lens I kind of look at the tech industry through these days. Unless you've been under a rock, you've probably seen the news that F5 Networks was breached. And last I saw, it sounds like the threat actor had about a year to poke around inside their systems, and source code was lifted. So you think about F5 and their industry reach. All of the massive enterprise players use F5 in some way, shape, or form. Now, I haven't dug into the actual nature of the breach yet. From what I've heard, it's not great. I don't know exactly what the vector of attack was, but when I see that headline and some of the bullet points, I am instantly drawn back to the SolarWinds breach of 2021, 2022. That was that supply chain attacks where SolarWinds got hit and then all of their customers got hit after that. And so I could see this potentially being another SolarWinds depending on the nature of the breach. I hope it's not. But if I was an enterprise security team with F5 in-house, you can be sure I would be staring at log files right now and traffic analysis and doing everything I could to make sure that everything is running as it should be. So if you haven't seen that news, I'll put a link to it in the show notes, folks. You can check it out. But hopefully by the time you're hearing this episode, it's a non-issue. So fingers crossed on that one. Clay, how about you? What do you got?
I've been focusing on the news locally over here in the Netherlands. To give you a little bit of insights, our government right now, and especially our version of the IRS and the Ministry of Defense, have a unified problem of being IT devices and everything being not secure, being out of date.
Oh,
Yes, they were actually just a while back. They were actually all cut off from outside the network. Like the every device inside the network that was used was only to be routed inside the network locally. Uh, could not make any connections to the outside, and it really makes you think. Really, yeah, because this has been going on for the last 10 years, still hasn't been fixed.
wow.
Yeah, and I have one of my classmates back in college. He actually did an internship at Ministry of Defense. Really interesting internship,
For sure.
and he had a few proposals for network security because he's really into the whole cybersec of things. Um, he gives me updates every few days. Like, listen, my friend, this is what happening. This is what is happening right now. The whole ministry is so fricked. It is so garbage, and
Oh
and
no.
I'm just watching and I'm reading and I'm like, oh man, it is like I think last year there were a few local devices found that were hooked up to a network. Thank God that there was network segmentation of some kind,
Right, for
but those
sure.
devices were running a cracked version of Windows XP. Yes, and
XP.
yes, with I think not even Service Pack 2.
Wait,
Yeah,
this was recent?
yeah, I'd say recent, about a year and a half, maybe. Yeah,
Oh wow.
yeah,
So
that
so
is
not only are they running an OS that is wildly out of date, it's a cracked version of said wildly out of date OS.
yes.
Ouch.
Yeah, it was when I read it, at first I thought like, nah, this is either fake news or this is heavily exaggerated, but I kept scrolling and I kept scrolling, and suddenly I read up suddenly I read the whole, we shall no longer give you any at this time we can no longer give any insights on this matter. Like, oh no. I'm like, oh no, this is serious. Like, oh,
Oh man.
that is bad. So yeah, I'm mostly following up on what the government right now in this country is doing to fix their IT problems, and
Yeah.
it's an interesting topic. It's an interesting going on journey. Also found a very funny smaller news item. Um, which is I got that sent. One of the bigger like IT and systems and tech info websites we have over here in the Netherlands is tweakers.net. There are other sources, of course, and but Tweakers is like a really big platform. They post news updates, they post software updates of listed software programs they have in their library, and really interesting. But I got sent a link, and I'm just gonna read it out loud. I'm gonna translate it from Dutch to English immediately. ChatGPT is going to allow erotic chats. And first of all, I don't know why he sends me that, but alas. Um, but the first comment that was posted on that news item was a sort of fan fiction type ChatGPT X, the writer of the news article, and I read it during work. I put it on my PC. I put it on my laptop, and I read it on work. I'm like, come on.
Oh, it's becoming an
Yeah.
interesting world.
Mm, that is for sure. Oh man. Yes.
Man, I saw the headlines over here too about that choice, and I I to be honest, I didn't see OpenAI doing that, but obviously there's a market for it. So
Yes.
okay, you know.
Yeah. Given the whole, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it actually. Character AI.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've heard the term, yeah.
Yeah. That's a funny coincidence of like ChatGPT now officially putting in methods of erotic chat. I have a few friends who are very against, wouldn't say against AI, but more like AI being overused for everything, like from
Right,
hey, how do I write this, or hey, um, w- what weather is it in Seattle right now? Example,
right.
for they use ChatGPT for everything.
Everything,
Thank
yeah.
God they don't. They still use ChatGPT like the web version and not agents sites. I it would be a nightmare if some of them were running it locally, but that aside, um, they're all very like, yeah, people use OpenAI, the methods, and ChatGPT way too much and everything. And then I'm like, okay, your number one visited website last week is character.ai. Do you care to elaborate? I'm like, well, that's different. I'm like, no,
Oh
that's
man.
worse.
Oh.
Uh,
Yeah, I've heard of that site, and you hear about it in tech circles or security circles because one of the theorized future attacks is going to be around prompt injection and using services like that to do embarrassing things to people.
yes,
And so it's like I that's the world we live in now, I guess. So I uh interesting times. Anyway,
for sure they are.
so let's get to our main segment here. We've got again a good topic to talk about today. Kind of diving into that question of, okay, I'm new to IT. Do I go the university route? Do I go the certification route? A lot of people getting into IT they're not sure which way to proceed there because, and there's a lot of different reasons. One is the kind of the speed that the industry moves. I've seen a lot of arguments in the last 5 to 6 years that, okay, by the time you start university and get done with your program, a lot of the stuff that you learn is no longer relevant or out of date. I'm not sure how much I agree with that statement, but it's that argument is out there. Um, I think it also comes down to learning methods as well too, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But kind of start off and kick off this segment, Clay. I guess from your personal journey to start with, what kind of drew you to tech and the sysadmin field? I guess we'll start with that.
It all began like I think when I was 11, 10, 11-ish. I started building computers. Like I was always interested. Like I was a young kid playing on my computer, huh? The funny little Flash web games that
Oh yeah.
we. Oh man, yeah. And one day, my mom got a computer for me from a a second-hand store, like the thrift shop.
Yep.
And she was like, well, if you're so interested in computers, how about you try connecting all the pieces and everything and making it work, making it boot up. I'm like, okay.
Right.
And at that point it was already easy, like it was just plugging in
Right.
and the IO stuff, like okay, monitor, power, USB for the mouse. No, not even USB for the mouse. There was the PS
PS2.
Yeah, PS2 connectors.
Yep.
Oh man. And hooked up everything, and now we got power, booted it up. Still remember the Windows ME boot up sound, like, oh
Mistake
man.
edition.
Yeah.
Windows Mistake Edition.
Ugh. And my mom was like, okay, yeah, that's good. How about you take it apart and try to, like, okay, try to unscrew something, try to take one part out of it. You don't necessarily have to know what it does. Like, he didn't even know what it was, but he probably thought, like, okay, this will keep him occupied for a good bit. I was a really jumpy kind of kid, ran around a lot, and she was like, okay, this will keep him occupied. And she was like, okay, take one thing from the inside, put it back, try to boot it up again. And that's really kicked off my aspiration for IT. By 11, near 12, I could fully assemble a PC, a desktop,
Nice.
Meaning RAM, GPU, and everything.
Right.
I also had a lot of desktops that were scrap because they could no longer boot up, or they had something, or I think I broke the pins of a RAM module once, like putting it in and then snap. Yeah, that's yeah.
Seen that before.
Yes. So I started building computers when I was 12, and then more and more I got interested in, okay, how do you build really powerful computers? How do you build smaller computers? What can you add? Like, I was keeping exploring the possibilities of building and hardware. And then I got a bit more into software. Like, okay, I was, I think, 14 or something. Yeah, I think 13 or 14. Was in middle school, and we had those school computers. Somehow they didn't lock CMD. I was like,
shell access.
Yes, this world is mine.
Yep.
So shut down T10, and like, okay, click CMD away, and like, just wait. And while someone was working on something in WordPad on the computer at school, they were writing a story or something, and suddenly their PC shut down. Like, what is happening? I didn't save it. Like, haha, how could that happen? More and more. I think I was 15 when I wrote a few VBS scripts, just because I like, haha, funny little pop-up. What can I do more?
Yep.
The CD tray popping up and everything.
Yep.
Yeah, it was great. All those little things really accumulated my interest and knowledge about IT. And then I was 16. I finished middle school, and I really, really wanted to do IT. In college, in university, I was ready, I was motivated, and unfortunately, for reasons, I couldn't enlist into education back then. It was really unfortunate because I had a really strong motivation to start. And for the years I tried, I had a job, bunch of jobs, very easy, like logistics, order picking, those really number field jobs. And I still was very interested in IT, and I tried to pick up information. I tried my hand at coding. Didn't go as planned because I was more it was clear that I was more interested in the infrastructure side and the security and system administration than I was in knowing how to print hello world in JavaScript.
Yep.
And then I was 18 and I landed my first IT job as a web developer at a very small place over in a very small town in this country, and this was just an MSRP. This was just a one-man operation. He bought like refurbished desktops from all sides, all parts of the world, like Yugoslavia,
Wow.
Ukraine, Poland, to name a few. He bought a lot of refurbished desktops because they were cheap, and then he brought them over, stuffed them in the office, cleaned them out, bought a Windows license, and sold them on his website. But
Huh.
this was a very simple type of WordPress template-based website with the e-commerce sites. I don't know if you know the platform Magento.
Not
It's
familiar with it. No.
no, it's it's you know Shopify, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so Shopify is for like, hey, I'm a very small business, for example. I want to do e-commerce, but I don't have a lot of technical background. Shopify takes a lot of technical aspects and does that for you.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
don't even have to set up a payments API platform key, I think. But he chose a very heavy type of e-commerce platform, Magento, which is PHP based in the
Mm,
backend and
right.
everything. And he did not know how that works.
Oh
And then
no.
he hired me initially to do just work on the front end of the website, and he was like, "Huh, you're smart, aren't you? How about you manage the e-commerce, the backend side?" I'm like, I am 18. I can do this. No, I could not. So all of a sudden I had to learn PHP. Never worked with that before. Had to gather information about my MySQL, the databases, and everything. And somehow I fixed the website because on the back end of the e-commerce site there was a problem. Once a new customer registers and clicked on the button, the page just refreshed. So over and over and over, I can again through many trial and errors, I fixed that. It was a template issue, of course it
Mm,
was, and I fixed it. Felt very proud. Within a few weeks, I set up a payment platform so that customers could actually register and buy the product listed on the website instead of doing mail in order or call the business up.
right.
Because that is how he did the commerce sites. You couldn't
Wow.
actually click buy send. No, you had to mail it. Very
Huh.
old fashioned.
Yeah.
But this was the first that I work with APIs and how to set up those processes and platforms and everything. And very interesting. Eventually, for the best parted ways, me and the company, and I had my eyes on another job, semi IT related, but unfortunately someone else got hired in that set. Eventually, to fast forward a little bit, I was 23, and at a point in my life where I was so convinced I had to go to uni to land myself the certifications, to land myself the diploma,
Yep.
the graduation, and everything, the skill set, the necessary skill set to land myself a serious job in IT. And I sat down. Um, just quick disclaimer: the Dutch education system is a bit different than the American one.
Right. Right.
Um, you can get like a scholarship, which is a few hundreds euros, depending on a lot of factors. And a part of that money pays the school costs, which is also depending on factors like which study you're going to do. Like a
Right.
graphical design study is obviously a bit higher tuition costs than a study in retail management, for example. But eventually I was calculating things. I looked everything over and I was like, okay, I can get this. I can do that because at that time I was 24. I was renting a place. I had my adult bills to pay and everything, and
Yeah.
I was looking things over and I'm like, okay, if I have a Saturday job and if I just watch out, don't do anything spendy, don't go crazy with money, I could actually go to college. I could actually enlist. I could start my studies in IT officially. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, despite what it would cost, despite the effort, what it would take. I was so convinced of joining uni and pursue education that I just kept telling myself this is worth it no matter what.
Right.
Um, and it
Good.
really
Good.
was. Yeah, it's that is a bit how my youth and early 20s developed my interest and skills in IT. Started at the age of 24, and then now 4 years later, I graduated a few months back in June, and now I've landed my first job.
Very cool. Congrats.
Thank you.
I it's funny, all the people that I've kind of talked about their origin story, there's this recurring theme, and it applies to myself too. Most people I see that go into the sysadmin role, they already had a deep interest in technology and IT in general. Because again, I'm an old gray beard, so I can say this. I remember being, 8, 9, 10 years old, tinkering with an old 486 um, raging 25 megahertz processor. Oh yeah, this thing. Hey, I could run TIE Fighter on that thing, and that's all that mattered when I was that age, right? But of
Yes.
course, when you're 10 years old and you're figuring out how to shut down Windows, which ran on DOS at the time, Windows 3.1, shut down Windows and reallocate system memory to graphics so that you could run TIE Fighter, I mean, like, you're kind of already destined for technology at that point, right? So,
Right.
but it was that's a very similar story to most people that I talk to in this industry. There's already that interest in tech, and so you had that interest. You ended up going to university, and I I mentioned earlier how there's that question hanging out there whether people that are sysadmins that went to university, whether they found value in it or not. I want to preface all of this by saying that I don't think university is not valuable. I'm going to get that out of the way right now. It is absolutely, there's value there. I think what the question is what level of value is there? And for example, for myself, I fall into the has some college buckets. So I did go to university myself, and I've always been more of this hands-on type person. Like, I just want to start doing the stuff, right? I want to be elbows deep in a server, and I always learn best by doing. So I'm sitting there and I don't know. The one that always comes to mind is we had like a networking class, and we spent 2 weeks, 3 weeks on subnet calculations, like doing subnet calculations in your head. And I'm just like, okay, this is great and all. I can pick up my phone and I have a subnet calculator. Well, what if you don't have a subnet calculator with you? What situation am I possibly going to be in where I have to calculate subnets in my brain. Now that I've said that, all the network engineers that are out there listening to the show are probably screaming at me, well, Andy, I've been in that. Yeah. Yes, if you're going to be doing nothing but network engineering
Yes.
all day, every day, like you should probably know how to do subnet calculations in your head. But the thing is, I can do enough. I could tell you how many addresses are in a /24, a /28, /16 subnet, right? For the generalist sysadmin role, spending 3 weeks on subnet calculations, I was just like, oh, I'm so done with this. And, uh, you know, thankfully I had the opportunity to go and work for enterprise IT at a large automotive supplier here in the States. And at that point, I just started pursuing certifications. So that all said, I think both routes are viable. I think it just comes down to how the person learns, and I think it comes down to structure of the university course load as well. And so,
Absolutely.
I guess what I would start with, you're in you got to university, right? What do you feel like they got right in terms of your IT training? Do you feel like they generally were on the mark, or were they missing some things, some things they could do better? Kind of wanted to pick your brain on that.
Yeah. So one thing they did right was the curriculum that was taught and the course load and everything wasn't completely cloud-based. In fact, I would argue that it
Nice.
was heavily based on-prem. We learned on-prem before we learned how to work in Azure, how
Nice.
to set up conditional access policies in Entra, and how to deploy apps and devices through Intune and everything. That stuff came way, way later, like
Right.
last semester type of stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very, very focused on on-prem because, to be fair, and in that part of the education on where it was based as well, it was on a very far eastern side of the Netherlands, and um, the running joke is, you'll only find cows, beds of grass, and farmers there. It's of course not not realistically what is out there, but there the IT infrastructure there in a lot of companies based on that location is still very much on-prem. So we learned a lot on-prem, and I think they did that right, as much as they could, because we started with okay, everyone download VMware from this link.
Yep.
Yes, VMware. We started with VMware.
Gotta start
And we did,
somewhere.
yeah, true. But
Yep.
the funny thing is that we didn't end with VMware. VMware ended things with us, but we started setting up like, okay, for this course, for this lesson today, we're gonna spend time in learning VMware, learning virtualization. How about each and every one of you now set up, download an ISO file from the school's portal.azure education software section. Everyone download Windows 10 and try to set up a machine. And like they gave you like a bit of a general outline. Try to set up a machine just local.
Right.
Doesn't even have to have internet. Set up that machine on VMware and try, like, try. If you run into problems, you know what you can do? You can Google it. Because back then, when I started uni, ChatGPT wasn't even live yet.
Right.
Was when did I start? I think, yeah, early 2021. Yes, pick my own brain. Um, but yeah, they really give you a lot of freedom. They did that right, definitely. Unfortunately, much like your experience, they also spent 3 weeks learning us subnet calculating from our heads.
So
Yes.
so it's not just my experience. That's
No, absolutely no. We had to learn binary calculations, and
yeah.
once we had binary calculations out of the way, we had to learn subnet calculations, and eventually one of the exam items was also subnet calculation. It was really fun. Yeah, packet tracer open with a
Oh
lab.
yeah.
Yeah, I always say yeah. I completely speed ran Packet Tracer, and I got all the achievements for Packet Tracer. Like nerds, you spent over 120 hours in Cisco's Packet Tracer. What are you doing? uh, one of the exams was setting up the network, troubleshooting, and the labs was called um, 80s network calculation, and the machines all had host names of the Beatles members. So you had
Ah.
Paul, Ringo, George, John, and it was really fun. They just gave you an outline, like, okay, this is the course. This is what's happening. This is the subnet. This is the IP range. Good luck. You have 1 hour. So funny thing is, I failed that the first time because I had the theoretical side I had done. It was just a multiple choice quiz.
Yep.
So that was fine. Then the practical side, because I stomped subnet calculations in my head. I had like notes. I had written documentation. I remember I had my PC and desk next to a wall on the right, and I had like big poster-sized paper
Yep.
that had all pen drawn networks and segments and very big letters. This is how you do it. And like, okay, but I choked during the first time doing the practical exam, and I looked it over and I'm like, oh no, I completely forgot, blacking out, completely forgot what I need to do. So what I did was finished up the theoretical side of the exam, walked over to the professor and said, like, okay, I am not going to be able to do the practical side right now because I completely lost it. If you'll allow me, I would like to redo it tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, regardless of when you set up the re-examination. And he was like, okay, that's good. I've
Nice.
also graded your theory side, and you scored 80%. I'm like, okay, good.
So he or she, the professor, they know you know the material at that
Yes,
stage. Yeah.
yes, exactly. And then I think 2 days later, we had the re-examination. I sat down with my classmate, and he said, like, okay, stop not calculation, do it like this. And he explained it in a way that just clicked. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh. But this is easy. Like, and then I breezed through the practical side of the exam, and I never calculated another subnet from my head since then. I did,
That sounds about right.
yeah, I did use it as jokingly as a flex. Like, okay, yeah. Okay, you know how to drive a car? Well, I know how to calculate subnets, and I will calculate you into infinity if you ever dare speak to me like that again. Like that sort of stuff. And
That's
yeah,
funny.
uni taught us the basics a lot. We had a lot of theoretical base courses. Eventually, they came to an agreement of for the second year we didn't have to buy any new books. They could all be PDFs. Very nice, very
Nice.
much obliged,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
yeah, oh,
You know,
and yeah,
was gonna say the one thing I'm glad to hear you mentioned was kind of that the practical hands-on exam. It reminds me of I think it's Red Hat's I think it's the RHCE that has the practical portion of the exam. You could pass the written portion, but if you fail in the lab, you don't get your certification.
yeah,
I so in my MSP days, the new interns, they would always kind of end up under my umbrella, and I would do some of the early training with them. And it always surprised me how, I don't know if it was just the university that the business I was working, I don't know if it was just the university that we were partnered with at the time, if they had a poor curriculum or what, but al- almost every intern that we would have come from that university, they would know the theory, but actually applying it, they would struggle.
yeah.
Just struggle. I remember one intern, you know, kind of asking like, "Hey, what should I do? What work needs to be done?" Right? Okay, well, I've got three or four, PCs over there that need Windows reinstalled on them. Yeah, can you go take care of that? Can you? Okay, how do I do that? Like,
No,
just
oh,
no idea on how, had all the theory behind it, but didn't know the practical steps of actually reinstalling the OS. And I think the other thing, you mentioned it briefly, I think is super important for universities to teach is that troubleshooting aspect of the career.
yes.
If you don't know the answer, what do you do to get the answer? That is such a valuable trait for sysadmins. And it sounds like your university taught you guys that.
Yes, they taught us that a lot. They taught us the ways of troubleshooting. They also gave info on like, okay, um, one teacher always said, uh, a good IT support engineer or a sysadmin, they know how to Google the problem. And
Yep.
I back then I always thought, oh, well, that's silly. Google won't solve this, but Google usually led to the groundworks of troubleshooting stuff. They also taught us a lot about the importance of documenting what
Yep.
you have done to troubleshoot, and especially if you found a solution, document that. Drop it all down in Word. Make screenshots. Make it messy. Doesn't matter. Say what you did, and then later you can, when you have the time, you can categorize it and order it
Yep.
properly. That's how I learned the network engineering stuff. Mostly the I think OSPF.
Mm,
Um, when the teacher talked about it, he talked about it a lot. He talked about routing tables. He talked about um, how to set up switches, but he also gave the info on how to document. For
right.
example, if you troubleshoot and if you found something, this is what you do. And I think that is what my uni did right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that troubleshooting and those documentation skills, they just pay dividends again and again and
Yes.
again throughout your IT career. I mean, uh, we've done episodes of the show on both documentation and on troubleshooting. I'll put those in the show notes, folks, if you want to check those out. But they are critical skills, and you get into the sysadmin space. There's going to come a day you run into a problem that you have no idea where to start with it, right? And so having those troubleshooting skills to fall back to can really save you sometimes. So
Yeah.
Well, we kind of talked about what you feel like university did well, and you've given a couple of examples of kind of where you feel like they maybe they spent too much time on some things. Is there anything you feel like they outright just missed altogether? Something that you feel like you got into the industry and it's like, whoa, I really wish they'd have taught us this.
Mm-hmm. When I think on it, I think what they didn't teach us a lot, because the the formats and everything that they taught, they were all very large enterprise based. They
Right.
expected you to, after uni, drop down in a company somewhere like with with about 600 employees, a 15 people IT department, and that is where you'll start your career. But they don't necessarily look at the side of companies that sell IT,
Right.
SaaS or ESAS, IT, infrastructure as a service, etc.
Right.
And that is where I landed my first job.
No.
So you do get the hang of it eventually, because in gross lines, it's all roughly the same. But I ran into a fair share of trouble where I looked back at my uni education, and I was like, this was not taught to me. And I would have preferred if I knew how I would do
Right.
this. Yeah. And like I said earlier before, they were very focused on Prem, and most of the Azure side that we had that in projects, Scrum, learning Scrum as well. Like, no one of us knew how to Scrum or work in
Right.
agile environments, so they thought of that too. And suddenly you had like a big info dumping few weeks. Like, okay, this is Azure, this is Intune, this is cloud, this is a conditional access policy, very important, do not touch that. And like, okay. Yes. And I wish they given us a bit more cloud oriented lessons, more structured into management and also the infrastructure side. And I don't know if it was important, but it's cloud as well. But we got no AWS.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, none, zero. Apparently, it didn't exist in their terms. To be
Right.
fair, they were very Windows based,
Right.
and
Right.
funny thing is, one of my favorite lessons and classes were the Linux classes. And my
They're fun
Linux
ones.
teacher, yeah, my Linux teacher was a very old, yeah, typical teacher kind of guy. He was like the goatee, the glasses, the you know the ones.
Yep.
And I remember back when I started uni, oh I was like, I don't like this man. The way he speaks, the way he teaches, I do not like this man. And then I started internship through college, and to the first internship, you get assigned like a teacher that looks over your internship, sees if everything goes well, your documentation, what you do, what you have learned, your projects, and that Linux teacher was assigned to me, and I was like, I'm gonna fail this internship already. But he and we grew together.
Nice.
Like, yeah, we started understanding each other, and suddenly everything fell into place. And I was like, this man is fine. Is it? This man is. He just has a peculiar way of teaching, but if you look past that, he's a great Linux teacher. He taught me everything about Vim. He taught me everything about setting up Linux servers, the virtualization side, the partitioning, very important. They spent a lot of time on partitioning. They spent less and less time on running services and everything through Linux, which
Right.
I wish they did more, because I still think that's a very important skill to have behind. One day you're going to come into an environment that is in Windows. So,
It's gonna happen.
yes,
Yep.
exactly. And what do you do then? I still see people they have no way how to execute commands in a CLI environment in Ubuntu,
Yep. I, s-
which
I, s- I still run into that myself too. You know,
yeah,
people, they see the blinking cursor in the CLI and like
and they're
they just
scared.
they just freeze. It's like, oh
Yeah.
my god, what do I do? I so I do a lot of PowerShell, and folks that listen to this show know I do a lot of PowerShell. And people, will ask me. I'll do sessions on PowerShell, and I've gotten the question before, like, "What's your favorite command in PowerShell?" Get help is my favorite command,
Yes.
because you know what? I suck at remembering commands, and I suck at remembering syntax. So those are the first things I teach, is like, how do you figure out how to do what you're trying to do, right? Those help commands are the first thing that I usually teach when I'm teaching somebody PowerShell.
I really like get child item, because it
Yep.
insinuates you steal something from a child, like taking candy from a baby.
Yep.
Yes, that is my favorite command.
That's a
Yes.
good one too, for sure.
Oh,
So, you know, we've got coming up towards the end of the episode, and there's a few things I wanted to touch base on yet. We've talked a lot about what you learned in university, what you felt like they could have done better. Once you got into the field, you've gone through university, now you've got a job in the field. Um, are there any moments that you feel like the real world taught you more than what you learned in a class, right? Because there's always like that real life situation where, uh, for me, and I'm sure I'll explain this in far more detail in our horror stories episode, but my very first IT job, we had a flood in the server room, and I'm not
oh,
talking a little flood. I'm talking 3 feet of water in the server room.
oh,
And so that's very emergency, all hands on deck. We have to fix everything right now. Experience.
yes.
It was horrible, but I learned a lot. Right? I don't know if you have anything, if you've run into anything like that yet.
Um, yeah, actually, I did. Recently, even in fact, actually this week.
Oh wow, wow,
Yeah,
timely.
it just popped into me. I work at a company where we sell IT and support management, everything to other organizations or companies, businesses, etc. There was one company that had problems with their internet. Well, they called us up in the morning, and they were like, "Okay, no one of us have internet connection right now. You need to help." I'm like, "Okay, good morning to you too." And what's the problem? And like, okay, you start your little guessing game. You start your little I call it interviewing the user. You start
Yep.
like, okay, do do you is it you that doesn't have internet connection, or is it everyone, or is it 5 people, or is it the whole floor? And what if you go up? Is there internet connection there? And they were like, yeah, we do have connection up. I'm like, okay, perfect. So I asked those questions while running into, while heading to Unify the platform and see, okay, yeah, a few APs are down, 2 switches are down, and
That'll do it.
yeah, I think, okay, why are they down? I'm like looking over to the logs. I'm like, okay, there's an update that couldn't be applied because there was a connectivity issue the day before. I'm like, all right. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll head on over. So hopped into the car. drove over to the company, and then was like, okay, let's see where they are, the APs and everything. And eventually, I thought this would be an hour, two at most.
Oh,
And,
yeah. Famous last words.
yeah, exactly. I arrived around 11 and I left around, I think, quarter to 6. It I left with the last few people in the
Yep.
building, and unfortunately, the problem still wasn't 100% solved. Um, in the patch cabin there were a few switches, and a local running server. Neither of them had internet, and I was like, okay, but why? I'm like, okay, I know this port, okay, and let's see, VLAN, it isn't placed in a different VLAN on accident or something. I'm like, okay, what is it? Like, I tend to troubleshoot from the
Right.
OC model, because that was what was taught to me.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, but can't be anything physical. It can't be the port that is broken. I mean, come on. These are enterprise level switches. They're very, very good. The port wouldn't break.
I think I see
Uh,
where this is going.
Spoiler alert: the port broke, like,
Yep.
because there was apparently a week or something ago there was like lightning, storm, everything, something that happened to the grid, and then apparently one of the ports kept linking up, then linking down, and
Yeah.
eventually inevitably breaking. But I didn't know that. Even after 7 hours, I refused to admit that it could be a physical thing, because it's a stationary object.
Yeah.
Nothing really goes in and out. If at least it's not supposed to. I mean,
Right.
if you're running a business and you plug in your main core switch is constantly a new cable in and out. Oh, could be, but not if this is like meant for that type of orientation that business was in. But yeah, it was a switch. It wasn't DNS this time.
This
But
time.
yeah,
This
this
time.
time. I'm saying this time because next time, who knows? It could be DNS. But yeah, eventually my manager, he ordered new switches, installed them the next day, 2 days after, and then the entire subside of that company finally had internet access
Yeah.
again. And to troubleshoot at least something, I just patched the cables from the ports that weren't working to a few slots that were magically in the right VLAN as well. And
Oh.
yeah,
Cross your fingers when you're doing that. Oh, I hope this is the right VLAN, and
yeah, exactly.
yep.
Nah.
I've been there too, man.
Mm.
That's one of the hardest things I think for sysadmins to do. I've struggled with it in the past. I've gotten better as I've gotten older and wiser, I guess. And that is challenging your own assumptions, right? I mean,
Yes,
it's it takes discipline to do that, right? Because
it really does.
it's tough, especially like you said. Okay, it's enterprise gear. Nothing should have happened to these, and I mean, like, but stuff does fail,
Mm-hmm.
So it's well,
Absolutely.
interesting. Good good story there. So I guess to wrap up, Clay, for those folks that are aspiring sysadmins, those folks that are kind of, wondering if they should go to university, if they should just try and dive right into the industry, what advice would you give for those people that are kind of at that entry point of their careers like you were?
I'd advise them to ask themselves on where they want to pursue a career in IT, and make a choice from there. Because if you want to do IT but only like the network side and only that, I wouldn't advise going to uni. I would
Right.
advise going to Cisco. Cisco has a really good platform for
Yeah.
um, uh, certifications. I was lucky because I got a few Cisco certifications for free thanks to my uni. I got my
Nice.
CCNA, the Holy Triangle, the 1, 2, and the third one. And but yeah, I think the question should be not solely do I only go to IT, do I only go to certifications route. I think you should ask yourself, what do I want to do? And then look into whether uni is applicable to your position or
Right.
whether you should go to certification route.
Good advice. Very good
Yes.
advice. Because like you said, if you're just going to do networking and only networking, and that's what you're interested in, you might not need the university route. Because I feel like most universities tend to provide that. They try to do the well-rounded approach, right? Touch on
Yes.
a lot of stuff. They go a mile wide and an inch deep, as opposed to the other way around, right? So, um, definitely good advice. Good advice. So, well, Clay, I want to thank you for coming on the show today and kind of sharing your experiences and your knowledge. It's been great talking to you. We'll have to hopefully have you back again at some point to chat another time.
Thank you for having me, and it would certainly be great to come back another day, another time, and another topic to discuss.
For sure. Definitely. We'll have to have you back. So I appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you
Thank you
again.
very
So,
much.
and those of you watching, thanks for spending some time with us today. Hopefully you found some value in today's episode. And if you've got your own university or certification stories, or again, horror stories that you'd like to share with us, again, you can drop a comment on the YouTube video or the Spotify episode, or again, you can reach us at contact@sysadminweekly.com. And just a reminder, if you didn't catch the beginning of the show, if you want to find all the different platforms that the show is available on, you can do that at www.sysadminweekly.com. Real quick, Clay, just one final follow-up with you. If folks want to connect with you after the show, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can always send me a message on my LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'm sure Andy here will gladly provide a link in the
Sure thing.
show notes, and you can just shoot me a message with any questions that you might have, even if it's a funny story or if you are about serious networking. I'm available for for talks.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I'll make sure we put that in the show notes. So, with that, folks, we'll let you get back to your day. Thanks for spending some time with us. Stay safe out there. We'll catch you again next week for another episode of SysAdmin Weekly. Have a good one.